Manisha. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Hey, Cindy, it's so good to be here. Thank you so much for having me and for chatting with me about these topics that I think are so important.
So, to start off, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. So, my name is Manisha Desai. I am a professor at Stanford University, where I'm a professor of medicine, biomedical data science, and epidemiology and population health. So, I'm a biostatistician by training, and I oversee a team of about 40 faculty and staff. And what we do is we work with clinicians, clinical investigators, and other types of scientists to try to address questions that will impact patients and patient care and give us insight into disease. And we do that through data science. So that's what I do at Stanford. I'm also a mom. I'm a mom to two teenage kids, Bess and Jacob, who are 19 and 18.
When you were growing up, what was your framework for having both a family and a career? Like, did you have specific expectations going in?
So let's see. So I grew up in the 70s in New Jersey and grew up with my parents and an older sister who was 4 years older. And, my mom, she did not work. She was a stay-at-home mom. My father worked. He was a businessman. My mom was like very supportive of my dad's career. Like she, really helped him sort of, socially. The networking was like really important for my dad. But she, her role was really running the household. She did most of the raising for us. My father was less involved. He was not like a hands-on dad. I mean, he was present, but he wasn't, he wasn't doing sort of the day-to-day like she was. And and academics were valued and they were important. They weren't like overly emphasized. I think what was, in our household, it was more like the talk was a lot about getting married. The emphasis was on like, when you get married, your husband will, and sort of talk about that. That was really something that was emphasized. Like, who are you going to marry, and what are they going to do? And so that was sort of the orientation.
That's so interesting. So, how did things turn out?
I do have a strong career, and I also have a family. And I think I always thought, what am I going to do? I did think in my mind, what am I going to do? I also did think, who am I going to marry and when am I going to get married? That was on my mind, but I also wanted to have a career as well. I wanted to couple it with a career. And I always wanted to be a mom. I always wanted to be a mom. That was something that I always knew. So a lot of those things came true. I did get married. I did have children, and I also have a career. I also did get divorced, and I'm now repartnered. So life works in interesting ways. And so a lot of these things sort of came to fruition in a really circuitous, non-linear journey, I would say. Academically, I started out strong, and then things didn't go so well. I was not the strongest student in high school, and had a bit of a journey to get sort of on track, and then ultimately I transferred into a college that felt was a really good fit for me. I went to Boston University, and started out my educational pathway there. My maternal aunt had just passed away the year my last year of high school, and she passed away suddenly. She was diagnosed with colon cancer, and within a matter of months, she was gone. And she had 4 kids, and this was like it really impacted me, and I became really I don't want to say obsessed with health, but I became very interested. Like, how does this happen? How do you go to the doctor's office and learn that you have metastatic cancer? And what if we had learned about this earlier? What if she had been in the States as opposed to in England? She was in England at the time. So I had all these questions in my mind that were sparking sort of a new interest for me in sort of disease and health around this time. And then went off to college, where I still had this interest in music and really saw myself as sort of a humanities type person. Um, and then discovered for the first time that like I was kind of good at math. And so that came to a real, like, that was such a surprise to me. I did not think of myself as a scientific person or let alone a mathematical person.
Mhm.
And so started pursuing the mathematical sciences and then saw, oh, wow, you can apply math to study disease. And so I learned that sort of around the time I was graduating from undergraduate, and I went off to work as an applied statistician, just getting some exposure to what that was like. And I thought, this is really cool. I mean, it's really interesting. It's got potential. And one of my professors at BU said, you should think about a career in biostatistics. And I had no idea what biostatistics was. Like,
Of course you
what is
didn't.
that? Um, and learned that, this is a way where you can sort of apply math to study disease, to gain insight into disease, to potentially cure disease. And that really hit home for me. So it was sort of combining this like newfound talent in math for me with this interest that had been brewing since my aunt had passed away.
What an amazing background. It's a testament to your ability to stick with it.
Totally. It takes time to find it, and sometimes it's just the act of like doing and trying things out and seeing where your strengths are. And because I had was such a poor student initially, for a variety of reasons, um, I really lacked confidence when I first got to college,
Mhm.
when I first got to the university for my undergraduate studies, and I struggled a lot with that, and that lack of confidence really persisted for a really long time, surprisingly long. So, some people would be shocked to hear like how much of an imposter syndrome I had. Um, when I applied for the position at Columbia, it seemed kind of silly, almost like a joke. Like, I felt like I barely got through grad school, or there were so many challenges involved with getting through grad school.
Mhm.
Um, some things were easier than others, but a lot of it was really hard. And I didn't feel like I was up to the task as much as my peers were. So it started even there, um, feeling like, wow, how did I get into this program? I went to University of Washington for my PhD. How did I get here? Everyone's so smart. I feel really dumb. Um, and those kind of thoughts are so natural and also distracting, and they also hold you back. And so they did hold me back. Um, when you get into your head like that, it's really hard to focus, and it's hard to be a great contributor. I don't want to like knock people who have imposter syndrome because I had and have it, much less so than I used to. But it is something to think about. It's like it's hard to be a really great contributor when you're in your head and thinking, there's all this noise in your head, like, I'm stupid, I don't belong here, I can't do this. It's hard to really know what you can do. So it's important to like work on calming those feelings down and saying, maybe they knew a thing or two when they let me in. And to be able to like reveal yourself and reveal your flaws. But I had it so bad, the imposter syndrome, that um, I couldn't vocalize, I couldn't speak, I couldn't introduce myself. Like I'm talking to you now, I couldn't do something like that. So when we had our every year, the at the first of the year, in the graduate school program, we would welcome the new cohort and we would introduce ourselves, so that we'd had a big seminar. We'd go around the room and everyone would say, who they are and where they came from and were they a first year or second year in the program. And I had such bad imposter syndrome that I could not even articulate. I couldn't say, "Hi, my name is Manisha Desai, and I'm here. I came over from BU, and I'm a first year student." So I would slip out and go into the bathroom and wait it out until the whole session was over,
Mhm.
and the seminar or whatever began. That was how much I lacked confidence. That feeling persisted for a really, really long time, definitely all throughout grad school and even in my faculty position. And I realized at some point that, when I had to get up and start teaching for real in front of people, I realized I really had to I had to fake it fake it till you make it. That sort of came to my mind, and that's what I had to do. And until I ultimately found my voice and felt like, I have something to say, and I think it's important to hear what everyone has to say. And so, and I stopped, and maybe this is just a part of getting older, I stopped caring a little bit what everyone thought so much.
It does take time. It takes time for that to happen. So what do you wish you'd known earlier on?
That I deserved to be there. And I guess not to feel entitled, but to take that opportunity and do something with it, as best as you can, and that you will fail, and that that's okay too. Like, you will, like, when you reveal yourself. I mean, my fear, right, and revealing myself was that everyone was going to see how stupid I was. They were gonna, but and they were gonna get to know me a little bit more by revealing myself. And so those flaws are going to come out, and people are going to realize that I have some strengths and I've got a whole lot of weaknesses too. And that's okay. And it's really like what you do with those opportunities when you do fall on your face, and you will fall on your face, and you should fall on your face. Don't just expect it's going to be this linear line and you're going to achieve and everything's going to go smoothly. You really do need those failures to learn from them. And so it is painful, but it's how you show up in the midst of all that pain and struggle that you can decide how you want to be and how you want to shape things by showing up, getting back in the saddle, and figuring out how you're going to take on that next challenge.
So what would you like to share specifically with women in academia?
We have great role models, great male role models, great female role models, but a lot of male role models. And it doesn't necessarily have to be done that way. We can define how we um, how we establish ourselves in academia, and it might be very different. We might end up being very different leaders. So one of the things that it's been really important to me is that folks in my group know that they have flexible hours and that they can bring their kids to the office too. So I've really tried to make it like a very family friendly environment. I brought my kids to the office. So there were many times where we didn't have, the babysitter was sick or something like this, and the kids would have to come into the office with me. And I tried to make that, I tried to normalize that's really okay. And I did, and it really warmed my heart to see other employees then say, okay, I'm bringing my kid, and hey, maybe he can hang out in the conference room and watch a movie while this meeting is going on. And I tried to make that like for folks to feel comfortable with that. Um, so I think that as leaders, we can show up in a different way, by still leaning into the work, but we don't have to be like our previous leaders. We can sort of redefine things how we want them to be. So what I want to tell women is to not fear it. So I've talked to a lot of women who are so stellar in their work and such excellent scientists who fear going into academia and going for that tenure track position, because so they'll prefer to take a staff position because they'll say, well, I want to have a more balanced life. Well, my response to that and to leadership is that our tenure track positions need to be family friendly. They absolutely need to be family friendly. And it's only going to happen once we have more women in the workforce. And I think that we need to get people to come in and to say, yeah, I'll take this tenure track position, but here's what I need to be successful. And I'm not going to sacrifice my weekends or whatever it is that's going to make your family functional. And I think it's really important that we ask for that, and that we don't say, no, I'm going to settle for less because I don't think I can raise a family and have such and such title or such and such job. It's time for that to end, I think.
May it be so. It was so fun to talk to you. Thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you so much, Cindy. Thank you for having me, and thank you for listening.